It's unclear to most observers why there's this newfound friendship or relationship between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin.
It's totally unclear to me. I've spent the last 15 years advocating for tough measures against Vladimir Putin for all of his corruption and murder and so on. And my biggest ally was always the United States. The United States was always the most stalwart, always standing there, always doing the right thing. The U.S. people generally understand who Putin is, and certainly everybody in the U.S. Congress understands who Putin is. And so for Trump to this is not only appeasing Putin, it's to switch sides and side with Putin. And I couldn't have ever imagined in my lifetime that we would see such a dramatic shift of U.S. foreign policy.
Is this ideological, or is this to try and find a deal economically with Russia?
It's impossible to know. I mean, there's not that much economics to do with Russia. I mean, America was never a huge trading partner with Russia because there wasn't that much to trade. You know, what does Russia have? Oil. U.S. has more oil. Other than that, there's a few, there's some aluminum, some steel. The U.S. has plenty of access to aluminum and steel. And so there's certainly not a national interest in doing this. And so the question is, and I can't answer that question because nobody can answer that question, which is what in the heck is going on inside Trump's mind to basically break with the U.S. public interest.
I mean, do we have any idea of who he listens to? I mean, is this some of the things that actually President Trump has said seems to come directly from what Vladimir Putin has been saying about, for example, the need of new elections in Ukraine, some of the things that, has also been said on who started the war. Is he being briefed by Lavrov, or is it someone inside his own administration that believes it?
Well, maybe he's being briefed by Tucker Carlson, because remember Tucker Carlson was also a big fan of Putin, and there's a small part of the U.S. establishment that has been and continues to be very pro-Putin. You had people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert. You had Mike Flynn, Steve Bannon, Sebastian Gorka. There's this sort of hardcore wing of the MAGA group that believes in that, but the vast majority of people in Washington, the Marco Rubios, the Mike Waltz, the General Kellogg, all these people, they've been around the foreign policy establishment for many decades. They know who Putin is and what he's up to.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing to also see, people very close to Donald Trump avoiding naming Russia as the aggressor in Ukraine. What's Vladimir Putin thinking right now?
Well, he's popping
having a good week.
He's popping the champagne. He can't believe his luck. I mean, he was totally isolated, completely, totally isolated. Nobody wanted to deal with him. He was an indicted war criminal for crimes against humanity. He was sanctioned by every major G7 ally. He was completely in the doghouse, and all of a sudden he's been welcomed in with open arms by the most powerful man in the free world. I mean, he is just dancing the jig right now. He can't believe how good things have just suddenly gotten for him.
Bill, what happens next? I mean, does the world just watch and stand by and, everybody retrades with Russia as if nothing happened, and we have a peace deal with Ukraine that could give Russia parts of the land? Or does Congress stand up to Donald Trump?
Unfortunately, Congress has no ability. So on foreign policy, it's the exclusive domain of the president to determine foreign policy. Congress can stand up on all sorts of domestic issues. The Congress can in theory, restrict funding for the next budget, but Congress can't say who you can be friends with, how you vote at the UN, all that kind of stuff. I mean, I think I think we have dark times ahead. If this is the first step, what other steps is he going to take? And for example, there's all this talk about a trade war with Canada, and Canada produces aluminum. All of a sudden, Putin has offered aluminum. So, does the United States switch aluminum suppliers to Russia, and all of a sudden Canada, sits there in a terrible economic mess? I mean, there are so many different permutations that are impossible to predict right now, but doesn't look good for the free world.
What can Europe do? So we saw President Macron, show up in Washington. There was that press conference with that moment where he basically fact-checked Donald Trump by also gently putting his hand over his and saying, well, actually, Europe has contributed this much, and
right.
It's not exactly how you're saying it. But does it make a difference?
It absolutely does. So we should not underestimate the economic power of Europe. Europe has a bigger economy than the United States. Europe has more people than the United States. And if Europe were to act together militarily, then they could support themselves and they could support Ukraine. And what we've seen is a massive shift in the last 2 weeks. The new chancellor of Germany has just come out and said that they've got to spend hundreds of billions of dollars or euros on a military. I think that there's now talk about, if and probably when Trump withdraws from Europe as far as NATO is concerned, how Europe steps up. It's going to be a big change for Europe. And this is the one thing that Trump is very right about, which is Europe needs to take care of itself, and necessity is the mother of invention, and now Europe is in a position where it has to.
But will it? And again, at the moment, even with Keir Starmer going to Washington, it seems they're still trying to get Donald Trump on side. If they don't make leeway in that, I don't know if you think they can, then will Europe be able to stand strong alone?
Well, I mean, Europe has one big advantage right now, which is that Vladimir Putin, who's the main enemy of Europe, has completely exhausted himself. It's going to take him, 5 years or more to rearm and kind of recover from what was this disastrous war, assuming that the war ends, which we don't even know that to be the case. Which means that Europe has 5 years, maybe more, to arm itself, to organize itself, to create a proper nuclear shield itself, and all the other things that go along with that. And so it's not as if there's a catastrophe tomorrow. There's a catastrophe in the future. And of course, the war has not ended in Ukraine. And it's not clear that Putin wants to end the war in Ukraine because he's winning now. He's all of a sudden, gotten the U.S. effectively to say, we side with you. And so we don't know how that's going to end, and what goes next in the Ukraine.
Will he stop at Ukraine if he gets part of Ukraine? And actually, do you think Donald Trump will be tough on him on that?
He's not going to stop with Ukraine. He's already said 1,000,000 times. All you have to do is listen to Putin. And he's made these speeches. He doesn't like that Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and Poland are independent countries. They were part of his sphere of influence, and particularly the Baltics. And, is Trump going to go to war with Putin over Estonia? No, of course not. He's not going to do that. And so I think that, the new German Chancellor, Merz, said it very clearly that we have to think of a defense world after NATO, because we're not going to have that American protection in the future.